Hey guys, Troy Dooley, the Beachside CEO, and I'm sitting here with somebody that I've come to admire and look at as a mentor, Mr. Kirby Cochran of Wake Up Now, CEO, partner, but more than that, as I've gotten to know you, I've gotten to understand that you're just not a typical entrepreneur or businessman. You've been able to help facilitate the growth of very large Fortune 100 type companies, but even more than that, you help the next generation. You actually help teach at one of the universities to help kids understand business. Is that not true?
I do. I teach at the University of Utah. I'm an adjunct professor. They've offered me full-time teaching, but I just told them I didn't have the time. I teach for the last 11 or 12 years in the graduate school, specifically teaching venture capital.
Great. You know, Kirby, when we first met, one of the things that you told me was that you had written a book. And matter of fact, I think Chad, your chief marketing officer, kind of wrote that with you. But as you shared that, I said, can I get a copy? And you said you didn't have any. And I was thinking, what kind of author is this, doesn't have his own books? But I went out and I bought the book. And I was blown away because everything that you had shared, and you invested hours with me that first day, everything that you had said, I started seeing in the pages of that book. And it caused me to realize this isn't just somebody that's a businessman, an entrepreneur, an investor. This is somebody that truly believes in what he's talking about. And it made me want to go back to college. I thought, man, if I was in his class, I could make a boatload of less mistakes than I've made over the years. But I want to ask you some questions based on that. And it's based on the 7 pillars in your book. You know, the first pillar is service. And you asked the question, who do you serve? Who do you guys serve here at Wake Up Now?
You know, I was asked that yesterday by someone who bought the book and came in, and that was the very first question. He goes, Kirby, who do you serve? And he's a distributor, an IBO of ours, and I could tell he was taken back by my answer, and he expected me to say that we serve our distributors.
Typical answer for network marketing.
That's not who we serve. We serve our customer. See, our business model at Wake Up Now transcends the typical network marketing company.
Okay.
The most network marketing companies that I'm aware of, I'm not going to say all, but most of them fail because their products or service exist to perpetuate the compensation plan.
I would agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you look at a long company, you know, a company that's a legacy company, but who becomes an iconic company, and we've talked about that, that what happens is that the you have to look at who is the eventual beneficiary. Yes. Okay, and so our philosophy is we serve our customer. And who is our customer? And it's no surprise, our customer is the consumer. And so the value proposition, and I believe all companies have to have a unique value proposition, is 2 parts. Number 1 is that we want to compete on value. Okay? That we want to be able to take our product and say our products are the best products in the industry and be able to explain why. And the second one is we want to compete on price. Okay? Now, here's the thing. Troy, we don't want to do that just for the network marketing industry. I'll take, for example, to begin with, our product Thunder that we released last year.
That's the energy drink.
The energy drink, exactly. When we went out, we went and got almost all of our competition's products and tasted them, subjected them to focus groups, what was the best, what did they like, what were the features of them, and what were their price points. Okay? And then we said, what can we do to build a product that is better than all of them? Okay? Now, after we did that, we said, what is our price point? And this is what amazed people. We looked at and said, our competition is not the network marketing industry. It is the entire retail industry. So we went down and we did price studies of the other energy drinks that you will find.
So the famous, the name brands.
The famous name brand ones. And we said, where does the predominant purchase happen? When people purchase them, what is the market channel, the distribution channel of their purchasing? Okay, and so we realized there was convenience stores. And we said, okay, could we sell our product to that industry on a retail basis and compete with them on a basically head-to-head basis based upon value and price? And here's our philosophy. We want to compete on value and price, and we believe 90% of the time we win the sale. Now, what does that mean? We're going on a strategy of, if someone wants to buy it, we want them to buy it from us. So it may be a juicer, it could be a sewing machine, it could be hair curlers, it could be just about anything. Okay, if they want to buy it, it could be diapers. We want you to buy it from us. And we want to be able to compete on value and price. And so what we did is we launched this concept of our own search engine. We're calling the WUN Life. And the WUN Life is a search engine that searches all our products and services, searches our cashback mall partners, but also our own products.
Wow.
And so with our Thunder product, our energy product, we price that at a point that it can be competitive on a shelf with a distributor selling it.
You know, Kirby, that brings me to the second pillar, solutions. And in your book, you ask the question, is your solution ready for market?
Right.
Now, that's my paraphrase, but how do you know?
Well, I'll give you an example. I financed a company. They had been financed with another network marketing, not network marketing, but another venture capital company to the tune of $20 million.
Whoa.
They cried uncle. So the company came to us and said, we need $2 million in 6 months. Well, $12 million and 3 years later, we too cried uncle. The problem is they could never develop the product. Okay. And here's the thing, until products are fully developed or developed enough that you can sell them, that solution is not done. The solution, it becomes a hope and a dream, and
sure.
You better have the development cost and know where it is. Now that doesn't mean that there's not going to be further iterations or versions of the product, but you have to get, if the product is never developed, you'll never have a company.
And sadly, I've seen that. I've seen companies that have phenomenal marketing machines. And the marketing machine will either pre-launch or pre-promote the product before it's even off the development shelves in some cases. And people get upset about that. You lose the trust from the end user,
right.
That customer.
Right, and so, you know, what we take a look at is, here at Wake Up Now, what we're looking for is we want to develop the products and then be able to introduce them to the customer, because I think you've seen in network marketing, there's a lot of people who will tell you what they're going to do.
That's true. Now, that doesn't mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, that doesn't mean there won't be glitches along the way. I mean, Microsoft is very successful, but I don't know if they've ever launched without hiccups. So that's part of the process.
It's a refinement process, and that's, you know, different versions. It doesn't mean you can't monetize your idea or turn your idea into money. Right. But you know, there is a definite process, and this is why, you know, we talk about in the book there. You'll see one goes up over here and the other one, and they go to support each other as you move down the value creation. Why we call them inflection points, because once you understand that there are these definite points that literally transform your company, you realize what you need to focus at that time in your business cycle.
Well, I know I have, and I've told people, even distributors, even independent professionals that are building a company, a business independent of the main marketing company, should buy that book, because I think the business principles are so solid. Which brings me to number 3, which is market. Can you even sell it? Okay. How do you determine what, I mean, obviously we found out one company you invested in couldn't, but how do you determine that here?
Well, you know, number one is that when you start to formulate your product or service, you have to bring in your whole team. Okay. You know, if you have just engineers running, you know, developing products, they're probably not close enough to the sales process to understand what the customer really demands. Right. So you have to bring the whole team to bear and say, okay, let's make sure that we are going in the right direction, and that there could potentially be a market for that product. See, the sale of the product validates that the research and the development of that product was worth the time to go into it. You're looking at how do we help eliminate the risk of the venture, and that is, you know, can you sell the product? But just as important, I started using before I had heard anybody else did it, and doesn't mean I'm the oracle of you know, genius here, but I call it CAM. What is your customer acquisition model? If you can sell that product, how are you going to sell that product in larger quantities, and can you quantify it? And because you might be able to get a customer, your product might sell for $100, but it costs you $120 to acquire a customer. Oh, wow. If it's a one-time sale, you probably say, I'm underwater on this thing. Yeah. So can you quantify what is the customer acquisition model? And so many people don't think through that process.
Well, that brings me a question that's really not in the book, but as I look at the vision of your company, mm-hmm. and not that we can talk on all of it here, but mm-hmm. how would you determine then, you or any company, we've got a product, we've got a market, it's doing well in the US, but we want to go into another culture, another company, the product that sells here may not work then over there, right?
Yeah, you know, and this is one of the things about going globally. You know, there are different likes and dislikes.
Sure.
I mean, nomenclature, words that we think are just normal are sometimes offensive in other countries.
That is true.
And so as you design your product, you again, it's part of understanding that customer and understanding how you're going to fulfill their needs and wishes. And so again, as we go international and Wake Up Now, you will see that products that will be offered in one country that are not offered in another, because we're trying to hit the needs of that and wants of that particular customer base.
And that's what I wanted to get on video, because I've watched so many companies that have done phenomenal jobs in a US market, think they could take what worked here and throw it into a different culture, and then they wonder why they failed. And after reading your book, it was like a light bulb went off, and I realized, man, what works here may not work there. What works there may not work here. You've got to know that customer base. And I think with you guys, with the actual consumer being that focal point, which all iconic companies are that way, you guys have that down, where a lot of times companies look at, well, it's our sales team or it's our agents or our brokers or whatever it is, without realizing we got to focus deeper into it. And in the fourth, and I think this is one of the big pillars, is leadership. You know, can you actually produce what you want to produce with the leadership? How do you determine, as the CEO of a company, who you're going to surround yourself with?
Good question. This is not meant to be a plug, but I get this a lot. And so over the last 4 years, I've been developing a book on entrepreneurial leadership.
Wow, okay.
And I've asked Jason Elrod if he would co-author it with me. And so sometime this year, in 2014, I expect that book to be done. But the concept that I've seen in business is there are three things. You got to have the right horse, you got to have the right saddle, and the right jockey, right?
Makes sense.
What it is execution. Execution is that of allowing the business plan to move forward. Because Troy, I'm going to tell you, been involved in a lot of companies, and I've never seen one company ever hit their business plan. In fact, in my midterm exam I give my students, and if any of them see it, they'll know what the answer is here. I ask them, how many companies ever hit their business plan? What percent? It's 0. They never do. And it's not because they're trying to be deceptive or dishonest, but when those business plans are written, they're trying to deal with unknown, making the best guesses, the best way that their companies can succeed. Okay, so it doesn't mean that when management tells you that they're going to try to do something that they're lying or whatnot. Things change, markets change. I mean, the economy changes, and so with management, you know, one of the big things I look at: what is the vision of the company, okay, and what is the culture?
Makes sense.
Okay, and can management execute? You know, I have a philosophy that if someone looks like they stepped off the plane from Vegas, I don't want to do business with them. And you know, I used to tell my students that I do not want, I'll never invest in a company whose management, they're asking me money and they drive a nicer car than mine, and I don't drive a real fancy car. How judicious are they going to be with my money?
Right.
And this is one of the things in the book, as you know, we talk about the symbiotic relationship that exists between customers and investors, and how they both serve each other, and if they do that well, then they both succeed. And management executing that business plan of both serving the customer and the investor, everybody wins.
Well, I tell you, it's been good. You touched on something a minute ago about investors and the customers, and really having the same common goal. And it triggered something for me. I've had so many clients that I've dealt with that had investors that invested in their idea, in their business model, but yet they look at it, I think, wrong, because they saw other people's money as really a bank account. They didn't realize that they needed to be good stewards of that, and all of a sudden they blow through the investment money, and then they wonder what happened. As an investor, and this, again, folks, isn't in the book, this is just something I'm thinking of, how are you able to weigh that out? I mean, you only know so much about that team that's coming in. What happens when that goes wrong like that?
I think I mentioned it in this book. It might be in the book that I'm writing right now. But, you know, over the years, because I've been involved in a lot of transactions, you know, typically it's not unusual right before the deal closes or whatnot, you'll go out to dinner with the people that you're about ready to do a business with. And I'll invite my wife. My wife's an attorney, and so she is born skeptical, but I think that's not just attorneys, that's women.
Sure, as a whole.
And so as we'd be driving home, she would quite often reach over and touch me on the arm, and in a very gentle way, and she knows that she needs to do it gently, and she'd say, you know, Kirby, I just don't get a good feeling about that person.
Wow.
Okay? And my response for many years, don't worry about it, I got handled, you know, and
been there.
And without exception, every single time that she told me that, and I went ahead and I did the deal, I lost money.
Wow.
So for the last several years, that we have an attitude inside with my partners, it is, you know, what would your wife say? And I think men have that. Women are incredibly intuitive.
Sure.
And so I think one of the things that you have to do is you have to look at yourself and you have to say, you know, do you get a good feeling about the person?
Makes sense.
And so as you're looking at management teams, you know, what kind of cars do they drive? You know, are they living outside their means? And I believe me, I enjoy nice cars.
Absolutely.
But you know, what is the image that they're trying to do? And I'm real careful when I get involved with people. Is I look at how they treat their employees and their staff.
That's good.
You know, are they condescending? Do they order them around? And more importantly is when the CEO or the management team isn't around, what are the little conversations you pick up, and
Makes sense.
what is the culture? So a management team has to be able to communicate vision and culture. You know, what is acceptable behavior and what isn't acceptable behavior, and because those are the things that are going to drive a company. You know, I talk about you got to have the right horse, the right saddle, and the right jockey. Okay,
Right.
If you can have the right product, the right marketing thing, and the wrong management team, and you're probably not going to work.
Well, you know, that brings us to pillar number 5, which is the organization. You know, if you've got leadership up here and you've got the organization, how do you know if the organization can deliver the way it's supposed to?
Well, one of the things I think you've seen here at this company is that I'm a very strong proponent of teams and team leadership, and that you still use a hierarchical type management structure, but you allow teams to function, because your strengths are my weaknesses and my strengths are your weaknesses, and that the sum is greater than the individual.
Right.
And so what you're looking at is, can you function in teams at a higher level than, it's not 2 + 2 = 4, but 2 + 2 = 40. Because there is an exponential amount of growth that happens when you have a well-functioning team. And as you come in our office, what do you see? There's a sign, and I had it made the very first week I came into the company, and it's check your ego at the door.
I saw that.
Don't believe your own press releases. Don't think you're smarter than you are.
Yep. And I've seen that. And it's fun to watch your teams because you actually build into your teams. And I think this goes right back to the way your book is written. Incentives, to where if they do what they're taught to do, if they do what they're best at, they get to achieve more, both in recognition and monetarily, based on their own actions. It's not well, I've got a job and now I can go home. It's I like to work. There's a lot of offices I go into, and they're not a happy family. I've come into this executive office now twice, and people are smiling. They have fun together.
See, we know that you're coming, and
so it's all
we stage it.
You got the actors and actresses. I see now how that works.
But truly, obviously the people watching this can't see the people who are behind over here.
Yeah.
I have so much respect for the people who are in our marketing department, our development department, our customer service. They fulfill such a need and want inside the company, and we have to listen. We all make mistakes. I'm not perfect, they're not perfect, but listen, if you can accept that behavior, your organization, your team will excel. Okay?
Well, and I've seen that, without a doubt. Pillar number 6 is the financials. Can you make money? In getting to know you more and more in the way you operate, you like to give and put money where it needs to go, whether it's the team in-house, whether it's your independent field force. You run on tight margins. How do companies figure out how to do that if they can even make any money?
Well, today I took you around the office,
you did.
Right? Yeah. And I said something to you. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it.
Yes, sir.
Right? And the management, that principle goes back to the philosophy that I have, and that is, when people know you care, they care. Okay? And I care. I care about our employees, I care about their families, I care about our IBOs, I care about our customers. And so what we have to do is set up mechanisms that we can measure it. And this is the symbiotic relationship that exists with management and investors, okay? How do I get my money back? You see, if you fail to realize who you serve, you're doomed for failure because you think you're only serving yourself.
That makes sense. That makes good sense there. And I think a lot of times visionaries are great, but I think sometimes they think they're serving themselves. Our egos, especially as men, are so fragile that we forget sometimes it is about other people. And you've got a good team around you that I think, and you mentioned it earlier, the weaknesses and the strengths, and I think you guys make a good synergy, and you seem, and correct me if I'm wrong, but your management staff seem to have permission to talk to you guys in a way to say, hey, are we still keeping the eye on the ball?
This gets back to creating what I think is very, very important, and that's a safe environment. Okay. Real quickly, a few years ago, I was driving down the street one afternoon with my wife, and she'd asked me a yes or no question, and it didn't matter how I answered it. I knew I was going to be in trouble. And so I didn't answer. And so she said to me, are you going to answer me? And I didn't answer. And this went on for probably 5-6 minutes. And I did not want to answer because I didn't want to be in a fight. Yeah. And so finally she said, is it that you don't feel safe? And instantly, that was one of the great learning experiences for me. It was, I didn't feel safe in answering that. Well, in our company, we all make mistakes, and I'll give you an illustration. Sure. There was a person in our company in the month of December of 2013 that made a mistake and overstated people's compensation. to the tune of $154,000, what the cost was to the company.
Wow.
Now, we could have been totally justified by not paying that to the distributors, but you know, we made a decision as a management team that it was probably best to pay it, and we created, as probably aware of, a lot of goodwill because people knew that we didn't owe it.
Absolutely.
But we gave our word, okay? And then people came to me and said, are you going to fire the person who was responsible? And I looked at it and I said, why would I do that? This person didn't do it malicious. It was an honest mistake. But and they go, it was $154,000, okay? In order to have a successful company, you have to create a safe environment. You know, you can't tolerate mistakes and you got to learn from them. But you also have to understand, unless it was done by maliciousness, if I were to fire him, what does that do to the organization? It creates an unsafe environment, and we want to create a safe environment where people feel like they can share their ideas and be a part and not suffer retribution for doing so.
Well, I would say in a situation like that too, after investing $154,000 in that person's education, it's better to keep them here.
Well,
exactly. They
exactly.
probably won't make that mistake again.
No, they won't. But even if they did, you have to take a look at it. If you're going to build a world-class company, you've got to be able to provide the leadership and stuff that's a safe environment. And people will flourish. Now, remember that. They will flourish if you provide a safe environment.
I can see that. And I think that's a lot of times, and maybe it goes back to the industrial age. You know, you had management, which was white collar, and you had blue collar, and neither mixed, you know, and we still see some remnants of that sometimes, but you know, I've not seen that here. I see people that feel like it's a safe environment, and you give them, I think, benchmarks that they can work towards. You know, and a lot of times when I go into a corporate office, there's no benchmarks for the employees. We got them in the comp plan for independent professionals, but you don't build them in, and you've built those things in, and I can see not only where it's safe, but it's fun. You know, people want to be a part of something that's fun, and with what you guys are doing, I think it's going to be fun for a long time, you know. And that brings us to the last one, which I think is one that probably the average viewer, at least of my videos, don't understand this word, and that's leverage. But then you ask the question, are you ready to grow? And in network marketing, you know, the mantra is, let's just hit critical mass right out of the gate. That's not always good, is it?
Well, I can give you instance after instance of where growth has killed companies. The traditional company has to invest in inventory, and they have accounts receivable. How are you going to pay for your inventory, cost of manufacturing, distribution, and how are you going to carry that receivable, because it causes real cash constraints. But there's a lot of other things that happen with that. And you know, the thing about network marketing is your growth can get out ahead of you, as you've seen, very easily. People get excited, you know, and you know, we had pretty good growth last year, and it provided a lot of, I'll say, opportunities to grow for us.
I can imagine, you know, I can imagine. But I think that's good, because if a company's ready, then they can weather some of those more challenging times, you know, because the leverage is there. They have margin, if you will, to be able to grow into that. And not every company could even have paid an extra $154,000 they didn't know to the reps.
Well, and every single dollar that we made in the company got reinvested. And so to take $154,000 out, it hurt the company.
I bet.
But the goodwill that we got all over the place, it was, you know, you can't quantify it, but it was much larger than that.
I can see that. You know, you've been great, folks. Let me hold the book up there, Kirby. You all need to go get Pillars of Inflection. You can get it over at Amazon. Don't get it. You can't get it on Kindle. I'm working on that with him, but it's a phenomenal book. And really, you know, I was frustrated. I thought, I want this on my Kindle, until I got the book. And when I got the book, I realized why I shouldn't have had it on Kindle, because I was able to write and underline and ask myself questions. And that's what this is. I tell you what, I don't care what company you're in, this is a book that can change your life in a positive way. Any parting words, Kirby, that you might want somebody to know?
Yeah, this is what I'll say. As you have read the book and as you think about being involved in business, it's a journey. And you're going to have some ups and you're going to have some downs, but enjoy the journey, because you can get through it. And I believe by following the principles in this book, it's about putting probability in your favor, but the rewards can be well worth it.
I can see that. Thank you, sir.
Troy?
Thank you very much.
Certainly will.
Folks, live life like it's an epic adventure. Stay dangerous, stay strong, and if you're in network marketing, act like it.